Much, Madam Moderator, Dayang Hazika. All right, so welcome to our intellectual discourse. Today, I believe we have audience not only from here but also from the online platform. Okay, you can see some of the participants from the screen. Right, so we are grateful today because we have two distinguished professor, one from Tasmania, Australia, and the other one from the other Borneo island. Okay, all right. So today our topic is about Malaysia at a crossroads. What is in store for general election 15? So I believe for Malaysian, I think this is quite important topic as well as become attention for all the Malaysian due to our previous years. I mean, we have facing many things in terms of the political change, political turbulence or political, I think something which is something which is attract attention many people. Okay, so today I will little bit introduce our speakers, our panel. The first panel on my right is Professor James Chin. Is a professor of Asian Studies at the University of Tasmania. He was also the inaugural director of the ASEAN Institute, University of Tasmania. Is widely regarded as the leading scholars on contemporary politics in Malaysia, especially the politics of Sabah and Sarawak. He is also a council member, Australian Institute of International Affairs, and he was previously Senior Visiting Research Fellow, Institute of Southeast Asian Studies, ICES in Singapore, a Salzburg Global Freeman Fellow, and Asian Australian Fellow. Prof Chin also has appeared on CNN, BBC World TV, CNBC, Bloomberg TV, and Channel New Asia or CNA, talking about developments in the region. His comments are often reported in the Economist, the New York Times, Financial Times, South China Morning Post, Wall Street Journal, and other leading publications. I think Professor James has a lot of experience, especially when talking about the contemporary politics in Malaysia. Right, so that's Professor James. On my right is Professor Dr. Jayum Jawan. He's a professor in politics and government in Department of Government and Civilization Studies. He has served in UPM many years. He holds a doctorate degree from University of Hull, UK in Southeast Asian Studies, Master in International Relations from Appalachian State University, and Bachelor of Arts in Political Economy from University of North Carolina. Currently, Professor Dr. Jayum is the inaugural chairholder of the Tan Sri Empiang Jabu Research Chair, which was appointed on 1st November 2019 for a 3-year period. He is also adjunct staff of Ohio University, Athens, US since last year. Okay, and he was the founding dean, Faculty of Humanities, Management and Science at University Putra, Malaysia, Bintulu Campus, Sarawak, between July 2020 and June 2021. Previously, between July 2015 and 2017, he was the 15th Distinguished Tun Abdul Razak Chair for Malaysian Studies at Center for International Studies, and also visiting professor of Political Science, Department of Political Science, Ohio University, Athens. He was also been appointed as Tun Juga Professional Research Fellow, University of Hull in 2004. Am I right? So I think he has many experience, I mean, serving also sharing his knowledge overseas. He research, writes, and present papers on ethnic dimension of development for ethnic relation and electoral process as well as governance. As the holder of the TSEJRC, which is the Tan Sri Empiang Jabu Research Chair, the focus of the subject of his research more on the dimension Dayak Sarawak woman. He sits as a member of the Advisory Council on National Unity, Prime Minister Department Malaysia or Majlis Perpaduan Negara. So I believe that we have a very knowledgeable and then also distinguished professor here. So without further ado, I think the organization of the discourse will be I will ask the panel to present about 15 to 20 minutes first, and then after both of them have presented, then we will open for quick question and answer. So I guess that the audience can prepare many questions because they are willing to answer any kind of question related to the topic. Okay, so without further ado, I will let Professor James to speak.
Okay. So, smart pagi, and thank you very much for the kind invitation for me to talk about upcoming GE15. As many of you know, GE15 is the #1 topic in all the kopitiams in Malaysia because everybody expect the general elections to be held this year. So what I'll do this morning is basically share with you what I think is going to happen. But more importantly, I want to share with you the environment in which Malaysia is entering the 15th general election. Excuse me. Okay, anyway, I don't want to hold people up, so I will try to speak, but you will not be able to reference the point I'm speaking on the PowerPoint. So I think the most important segment of the voting population we have to look at is really the Malay voters. Whether you like it or not, the way the electoral system is designed in Malaysia is that it will be the Malay voters who will decide the outcome of GE15. So in this case, what is important is to understand that the major players in the Malay community is obviously UMNO. Second player will be the Bersatu Party. The third will be PAS, and of course PKR. I think what we'll be looking at in terms of GE15 is that we'll be looking at who will end up as being the dominant Malay party. So those of you who remember back in 2018, right, in terms of the rural Malay votes, not the overall votes, but in terms of the rural Malay votes, what was quite interesting was that voting was split among the rural Malays essentially into UMNO, PAS, and Bersatu. So the votes were split 3 ways. I don't expect GE15 to return similar results. So what I expect is that there will be one dominant party after GE15. So my guess is that it will really be between UMNO and Bersatu. One of them will win big, the other will lose big. So the issue is really who will lead the Malay polity after GE15. Related to this is, of course, there's lots of talk about what role will Najib and Zahid play after GE15. Because whether you like it or not, Zahid is still the president of UMNO, and Najib is still a very, very influential voice in Malay politics. So in terms of UMNO itself, I can tell you, and I'm sure you all know this, that UMNO is actually very, very confident going into GE15. So that's the reason why we see that, among the UMNO election machinery, they're trying to push for general elections this year. I think there were some grounds for the optimism that UMNO will do very well, especially if you believe in the theory that, voters tend to vote along a similar way or similar wave within a very short period of time. So if you look at the UMNO share of the votes in Malacca and Johor, it is quite clear that a large chunk of the Malay electorate is moving towards back to UMNO, and therefore UMNO have the momentum. The issue is really whether UMNO can get back the 2/3 majority, or UMNO/Barisan Nasional can get back the 2/3 majority like they did in Johor and in Malacca. For the other Malay party like PAS, I think the issue is not how many seats they will get, is whether they can get the same percentage of Malay voters. As you know, right, PAS has been in government for the last 2 years, since 2020, and they have spent a lot of time trying to build out the machinery. So we will see a test of whether they have really strengthened the machinery in the last 2 years and whether they can retain the share of the vote. In terms of the actual number of seats PAS will get, I suspect the number of seats that they will get will actually drop. But if they can retain the percentage of Malay votes that they kept in 2018, I think they will retain their level of influence. The big question for the Malay voters is really Bersatu. And of course, the new party Perjuangan, which is, as you know, is a split party from Bersatu. After Mahathir left Bersatu or was sacked from Bersatu, the issue is that whether they can survive GE15. The reason is for Perjuangan, the reason is very simple. As you know, they did very, very badly in Johor. In fact, most of the candidates lost the deposit. So if this pattern is repeated for nationwide, when I talk about nationwide, basically I'm talking about Peninsular Malaysia. If this pattern is repeated, right, then Perjuangan will fall up. It's as simple as that. They cannot survive The way Malaysian politics work, right? If you are not represented in parliament, it is very, very difficult for you to survive outside the parliamentary system. Same thing with Bersatu. If they cannot win a significant number of MPs, then there are question marks whether they can survive in the system at all. There are some people talking that if Pejuang and Bersatu do very badly in this coming general election, then you will be looking at a repeat of what happened to Parti Semangat 46. Those of you are old enough will remember when Tunku Razali came out UMNO, he tried to create a base in Kelantan. After 2 elections, he was forced to dissolve S46, and the majority of the people at S46 were forced to go back to UMNO, the winning party. So that is the Malay party. Next page, please. Now, in terms of the opposition, I think some of the key questions that remain unresolved is that will Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim continue to lead Pakatan Harapan, and more importantly, whether he will be the prime ministerial candidate for the opposition. As you remember, right, in 2018, one of the reasons why Pakatan did very well was because they made it very clear if there was going to be a change of government, then Mahathir Mohamad will be the prime minister. And I think that was a significant factor in many Malay rural areas because people trusted Mahathir. They trusted him as what we call an old hand. He has been prime minister for a very long time. So people are willing to vote for the opposition because they know that Mahathir will be back at the helm of the government. Anwar Ibrahim, as you know, has been trying to be prime minister for a very long time. And in the last 2 or 3 years, he has constantly said that he's got the numbers to be prime minister. So nothing has happened so far. So I think this is a big issue that PKR will have to resolve, and Pakatan Harapan as a coalition will have to resolve. But within PKR itself, they also have to do some work because latest surveys and ground information suggest that they may be losing ground among the urban Malay voters. They did very well in the mid-6 in 2018. This may not be repeated in the elections this year. So they still have some work to do. For the biggest party in parliament, and I think a lot of non-Malaysians are always very surprised when I tell them that the biggest party in Malaysia is actually the DAP with 42 seats in parliament. They are also in a bit of trouble because they did badly in the last 3 state elections in Melaka, Sarawak, and Johor. The explanation is that the Chinese community, having voted in strongly for DAP in 2018, are very angry with the DAP because the DAP was unable or unwilling to deliver some of the major promises they made to the Chinese community in 2018. So because of that, the Chinese may feel that they need to punish DAP. The Chinese are very pragmatic voters, so they will punish you if you don't deliver. They've already punished DAP in 3 state elections, Melaka, Sarawak, and Johor. So the question is that whether they will repeat the same format as to punish the DAP in GE15, or they will forgive DAP and vote DAP in GE15. Okay. Related to that is, of course, the smallest party in Pakatan, which is Amanah. Amanah is also in a bit of a problem because they're having problems trying to carve out a space for themselves. As I mentioned, since PAS is in government the last 2 years, PAS has been working the election machinery very hard, and they're trying to make life difficult for Amanah. Now, the only significant change in Pakatan Harapan since the last general election is, of course, they have allowed a new member to join them. So Pakatan Harapan consists of now 4 parties, and the newest party is actually UPCO from Sabah. What is interesting about UPCO is that UPCO is a local-based party in Sabah. The reason why it's interesting is because previously, Pakatan Harapan's partner in Sabah is actually Warisan. So Warisan apparently has decided to go their own way, and UPCO has come in to represent Sabah. But UPCO itself is having a leadership election later this year as well. So that may impact on how well UPCO will do in the upcoming election. Now, of course, people are also very excited about new parties. The most famous one is, of course, MUDA, M-U-D-A. And MUDA, of course, is supposed to get the young voters, 18 to 20-year-olds. People thought that MUDA would do very well. There has been a lot of excitement. But as we can see from the results of the Johor state election, that may not be the case. Just because you are young, that doesn't mean that you will automatically vote for the opposition. It's much more complicated than that. And of course, there's also parties like Parti Bangsa Malaysia, who are trying to what they call it, target the urban voters as well. Next. Okay. Now, of course, when you talk about electoral politics in Malaysia, you also have to talk about Sabah and Sarawak. The voting pattern there is very dissimilar to Peninsular Malaysia, and of course, since 2018, over there the political environment has changed completely. In Sabah, it's interesting that you got two coalitions ruling the government. The indigenous coalition called GRS is already thinking of post GE15. In other words, they're already planning for scenario post general election. They're not even planning for this election. They're thinking about post general election. So that's the reason why just recently they admitted UMNO, which is an old Sabah-based party formed by Tun Mustafa Harun, into the GRS. So the idea is that UMNO is already planning. It's quite interesting. The people in Sabah are already planning that Bersatu will not survive GE15. So that's the reason why UMNO was brought into GRS, because UMNO is supposed to replace Bersatu in Sabah. Warisan, Sabah-based party, did very well in the last general election for a new party, but now they've decided to go national. So it is almost certain that Warisan will have some candidates in Selangor and Penang and maybe a few other places. Now, the reason why that is important is because Warisan, by coming to Peninsular Malaysia, it means that you're changing your brand from a locally state-based party, Sabah party, to a national party. And that is problematic for a party like Warisan, because you will form on the basis of Sabah nationalism. In other words, you will form on the basis of fighting for Sabah rights. And now you're making yourself in the national party. That may or may not work, especially in Peninsular Malaysia, where many people still see them as a Sabah-based party. In Sarawak, the picture is much clearer. GPS, as you know, won a landslide victory. More than 90% of the seats in the Sarawak Dewan Undangan Negeri. Their policy of keeping non-Sarawak parties out of Sarawak appears to be very popular, together with the rise of Sarawak nationalism, Sarawak for Sarawakians. So it looks like GPS will have very, very little problems in steamrolling over the Sarawak part of the GE15. Another reason why I suspect GE will do very well is because the opposition is highly divided in Sarawak at the moment. Okay. So what are the states? As the title suggests, what are the states? I think GE15 will be historic. It is the first general election after 2018. It is the first general election after COVID-19. And basically, I think voters will be given a very clear choice. One is that the argument is that you have to vote for Pakatan Harapan because Pakatan Harapan did not complete a 5-year term, right? So they were deposed in 2020. So you vote for Pakatan Harapan because you want to give them a chance to complete a full term. Or you vote for the Barisan Nasional model, which is basically going back in time, back to pre-2018 when Barisan Nasional was in charge. Okay, as I mentioned very early, I think this is a very important point. I think the Malays, among the Malay voters themselves, they themselves think that, you know, we have to elect one dominant Malay party. Because without one dominant Malay party, they have seen that since 2020, there has been a lot of political instability. Basically, we had 2 regime change, and we will probably have a 3rd one very soon. And of course, the states is also, the election result will have a direct bearing on what happens to Najib and Zahid. I don't want to talk more about that, but you know exactly what I mean. Okay. I think the other important stakes we will be looking at is the rise of social media. Now, this is something that worries me a lot, because, you know, if you speak to the politicians in this country, right, a lot of them actually still do not believe, the senior one, they actually still do not believe that social media can play a big role. The only exception to that rule, interestingly enough, is Najib. Najib very early on, and I'm talking about even pre-2018, he understood the power of social media. He is the only senior UMNO leader I know who understood the power of social media. Now, this has come back as a very important issue because you all saw what happened in the Philippines. In the Philippines, basically Bongbong Marcos won the presidential elections in the Philippines because of social media. Okay, they've already done extensive survey in the Philippines to show that the majority of young voters who went to vote in the Philippines get their political information from social media, especially TikTok. Of course, I'm not young anymore, so you guys tell me whether you spend many hours watching TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is. But I can guarantee you, I'm sure it's an open secret. I'm sure those political parties here in Malaysia, they are all going to Manila now to recruit those people who do the TikTok videos and import them for the next general election. Okay, and of course, GE is important because whichever government will come in will lead Malaysia back to normalcy, the final stage as we come out of COVID-19. Okay, so what do Malaysians want? What do Malaysians want? I think generally speaking, if you look across the board, I think Malaysians want political stability. I don't think Malaysians regret regime change in 2018. I think after 2 or 3 years, now in the 4th year of regime change, I think people say regime change is a positive thing because it forced the politician, to wake up and know that they can be replaced at any time. I think, but what they don't want is political instability lead to government paralysis. So you can see, right, for the last 2 years since 2020, the government has not really moved. I think there's really no long-term planning because the entire country is just waiting for GE15 to happen. I think the government related to this, of course, I think people are looking for a competent government. Okay, the reason is because they want the economy to go back to normal. One of the issues living in this country is that the newspapers are not doing real reporting in this country. The economy, the Malaysian economy was really damaged during COVID-19, really damaged. So I think people are looking, and a lot of people lost their jobs. They want the economy to go back to normal. They want their lives to be back to normal. They want better jobs. And of course, they want a better future, just like any other people for any other country. Okay, so that is what Malaysians want. But what will Malaysians get? I think what will Malaysians get? What will Malaysians get, unfortunately, may not be what they want. What we have in a situation now is that the elite structure in this country has not changed. So it is the same group elites who are still fighting for GE15. I do not see any fundamental change with GE15. It is the same group elites fighting for GE15, and the winner, it doesn't matter which side come into power, it will be the same group elites. So basically what we have is that we have basically two choices: go back to 2018, which is the Barisan model, or go back to 2020, which is the Pakatan Harapan model, which, as I mentioned earlier, allowed Pakatan Harapan to finish their term to bring reforms to Malaysia. Okay. What we will also get is that the social media this time for GE15 will be far more sophisticated compared to 2018. I think what you will see in terms of the social media is that you will see a big rise in targeted social media. 2018, most of the social media were targeted at the urban class. I think this time they will have more specialized social media operatives who will target specific groups. For example, you may target, Johor Malays, Kelantanese Malays, the natives of Sabah, the natives of Sarawak. Now, linked to this, of course, is that I foresee a big rise in negative campaigning. This is something we saw in the Philippines as well, and this will definitely come to Malaysia. One of the things about Malaysia, right, in terms of campaigning, right, we are quite, our trend in Malaysia is quite, follow quite closely what happens at the regional level. So that's the reason why I brought in the issue of the Philippines. We shall see whether I'm right or wrong, but I suspect we will see a lot more. Right now, if you go to TikTok, there's not that many political videos on TikTok, but I suspect once GE15 come, a lot of TikTok accounts will be created and a lot of them will be political in nature. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. James. I think for a very precise, even though precise, but very full of the information about what is in store for the general election. All right. Okay, so I think we would like Prof. Jayum to speak about this topic. So what is in store from your perspective for general election? Yes, please. We prefer to sit here. You can also do here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Datul, for the kind introduction earlier. My colleague, Professor James from Tasmania, Head of the Department, Professor Mahadi, Deputy Dean, Dr. Hanina, ladies and gentlemen, and especially dear students from the Faculty of Human Ecology. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to all of you about a topic that is very important to Malaysian politics, and especially in view of the fact that Malaysia will be electing a new set of leader on or before May next year, when our parliament expire, and so too many of the state assemblies across the country. I don't have much to say except a few things. James has covered quite a number of issues. I wouldn't say I agree or disagree. We are different political scientists, so we look at things perhaps differently. But what I want to say, first of all, is that the government or the leader that is chosen by Malaysian, is as good as the people who put them over there. So if your leader is bad, you are the one who put them there. If they are good, then praise yourself because you make a good selection for the people to lead you. Because after every election, especially after 2018, we are hearing so many voices, not pleased with this leader. They took down the prime minister, the first prime minister appointed after 2018. Then we see the second prime minister appointed. Still, they're not happy. And now we have three prime minister, the third prime minister after one general election. So this is a record of itself. So I think Malaysians have to take note that whether these are good prime ministers, good leaders, you yourself put them there. So you want to blame anybody, don't blame anybody, blame yourself. Don't blame Pakatan Harapan, don't blame UMNO, don't blame anybody. You are the one who voted in 2018. So I think that's my first point. Now, second, I think we already know what is going to happen in the 15th general election. I need not tell you that another Malay will become a prime minister. It will not be a Dayak, and not any Ban, not a Kedasan Dusun, neither a Chinese, remotely an Indian. I say remotely an Indian because there is no Indian seats in Malaysian's 222 parliamentary seats. Not even one has an Indian majority. So if we are talking about ethnic politics, voting along ethnic line, I think Indians who sits in parliament sits at the mercy or at the courtesy of the Malay voters. They align themselves to UMNO, they align themselves to Pakatan Harapan, so they align themselves to DAP, so they wrote, they won on the basis of the support of the other community, not from their own community. They may get substantial vote from their community. Now in Malaysia, I said this to the Malay, not the Sarawak Malay, not the Malay from Sabah, but the Malay from Semenanjung, the Malays from the peninsula. you will always be the prime minister. So that it is an unfounded statement when Malay express fear that they are losing power, they are losing grip, because the Malay will never lose power. It's a matter of whether Malay A will become prime minister, Malay B or Malay C, different groups of Malay, but it will still be Malay and Malay from the peninsula, from the 11 states in the peninsula. Yeah, so these are the facts that nobody can challenge, nobody can say otherwise. Looking at the political structure of Malaysia, 222 seats in parliament, 165 came from the peninsula, spread across the 11 states in the peninsula. Out of the 165, about 40 are Chinese majority area. The remaining, about 125, are Malay majority. 0 majority for the Indian community. So when I say that the Malay will become prime minister yesterday, today, and tomorrow, it is based on that fact that is rooted in the Malaysian political system. So yes, some community may become power broker, may become important at certain time, at certain general election. Now, as we have seen in the last general election, 2018, Sabah and Sarawak will become influential decider of the next government that is going to be formed after the 15th general election. Why? I think Jayum has covered that neatly by saying that there is already a political consolidation, especially in Sarawak, which we witnessed in the recent election to the Sarawak Assembly, where the ruling state government, GPS, can't remember what it stands for, GPS, but it is a state ruling party that won landslide victory late last year. So there is that political consolidation. Political analysts were looking to the fact that, well, because of that political consolidation, they are also thinking that that might be reflected in the coming parliamentary general election in as far as Sarawak is concerned. So if that happens, yes, Sarawak will play a very important role in determining which group of the Peninsular Malay will emerge as a winner or emerge as the next prime minister, because Sarawak has 31 seats. If we can win all, but I don't think they can win all. They will win quite a big number. But I think we have to give and take. About 3 or 4 seats may fall or may fall to their opponent. Yeah. Next, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to note that Malaysia is entering a new phase. Unlike before 2018. Before 2018, we have one dominant political parties or coalition of political parties. It is not necessarily a bad thing, but we have seen that the dominant by one political party or a coalition of a political party can be arrogant. Leadership can be arrogant. It does not listen to the people because they have enough majority, therefore they pushes things down the throat of many communities. Malaysia is a multi-ethnic society. Leadership, Malay leadership must listen to the Malay. Of course, you have to listen to the Malay. The Malays are 60%. You must also listen to the Chinese because the Chinese are about 25% in Malaysia. As you listen to the Chinese, you must also listen to the Dayak, because you may tell me, political scientists from the peninsula can tell me that Dayak may not be important because Dayak is only 5% of the national population. Yes, you are right. But you are not Malaysia teliti. You're not what is teliti in English? You are not being very thorough in your investigation, because if you say that because the Dayak constitute 5% of the national population, therefore they are less important than the Chinese who constitute 25%. I tell you differently, Dayak are may or maybe even more important than the 25% national population of the Chinese. Why? Because that 5% nationally represent 45% of the total population of the people in Sarawak. The Malay is only 21% in Sarawak. Yeah. The Chinese is about 26 or 27%. Yeah. So the Dayak are important. Yeah. So don't make them angry. Don't make them reject federal leadership, federal political parties. Now you will see also that I am a little bit lost in trying to explain sentiment. Yeah. Before election, you hear so much dissatisfaction. Well, not just among Dayak, but among many others people in Sarawak, in Sabah, and also in the Peninsula. But when it comes to the state general election, recently in Sarawak, the sentiment in the ground is not reflected in the voting booth. Yeah, despite the fact that all social media, many social media that I am member of, I'm aware that the Dayak community are not happy whether with the state or also the federal government. But when election come, you see landslide in the Malay community supporting one ruling political party. You see landslide from the Chinese community. You see landslide from the Bedayu, from the Iban, and from the Orang Ulu. So something does not quite click between what happened before, what happened after voting. So that I don't plan to indulge much, but I think that is something that political analysts can only explain post factor. They can explain why shifting, why this voting does not come about. But I think more important is why is the sentiment not reflected? And then after the election, and then you start again complaining. You are being left out. You are being marginalized. You are being not given attention that you are supposed to. So the sentiment, the pre-election sentiment, repeats itself again. So I think this is sad actually. Where is the problem? I can't really pinpoint because it is the problem of the voters. You say that you are being marginalized, but then you are voting for the people whom you accuse marginalized you in the first place. Doesn't make sense, is it? So maybe these Malaysian voters are people who don't have sense. Yeah. So I think that much I can say. Now, in as far as the next 15th general election in Malaysia, I do not believe that there will be any new pattern. We will, I hope, see the same pattern. The pattern that we see in 2018. And that pattern of voting, I think, is good. Yeah. Good. Why? Number one, there is no political party. There is no coalition of political parties. Political party meaning one party or groups of political party winning absolute majorities. So Pakatan Harapan did not win absolute majority. Barisan Nasional did not. And even now, Perikatan Nasional also do not have absolute majority. This is a very good thing. Why it is a very good thing? Because To me, when no political party, no coalition of political party wins a majority on its own, it is good because they have to reach out. They have to reach out to everybody in order to build a working majority. So suddenly, Sabah is important. Suddenly, Sarawak is important, whether to the Barisan Nasional, to Pakatan Harapan, to Perikatan Nasional. Yeah. So Sabah and Sarawak in particular become more important compared to previous general election. Yeah, so I think this is good because when a political party or a coalition of political party do not have enough majority reaching out, then they need to negotiate. Yeah, they need to negotiate. They need to satisfy everybody. So everybody must be satisfied to be in a coalition that could claim the quote unquote the right to form the government. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we have been seeing more segment of our society talking more openly, but to me, they're still not talking open enough. But at least they are mentioning, they are airing their grievances. For example, Sabah and Sarawak talks about many things. Among others, they talk about the possibility of independence. That as a Malaysian, I do not agree, because that I think is treason to take out the state out of a union or a federation. But to me, it is not so much a treason, but it is an expression of dissatisfaction, long-term dissatisfaction. In the Malay, it will call be rasa kecewa yang terpendam sudah lama. They have long been dissatisfied, but all this while they just keep quiet. Why? I do not know. Yeah. Suddenly now, all things, all dissatisfaction are coming out. The federal government is not treating us right. The federal government is taking our money and investing it in the peninsula. Our oil money, our Petronas money, they are all taken and to develop peninsula. So now Sarawak, we have been hearing wanting a bigger chunk of that development fund to develop Sarawak. So they are demanding this, demanding that. But again, I think that this demand expressed by the Sabah and Sarawak, I think is showing weakness also, to the state leadership. Why are you demanding something which already belongs to you? I don't understand. You are demanding something that already belongs to you. What has been expressed by the state government of Sabah and Sarawak is the rights of Sabah and Sarawak as enshrined in 1963 Malaysia Agreement. So there is nothing to demand. It is something for the federal government to be sincere, relook at it, and do according to the agreement that has been signed by your forefathers. That is talking about integrity of leadership. That is talking about leader that cares, not just for the peninsula, for Sabah, for Sarawak, but of course it will be the Malay leader. As I suggested earlier. So it is on their honest on them as a leader to be inclusive. Because in Malaysia, I am an Iban. I can never have an Iban as a prime minister. Never. So too Bedayu, so too Kadazan, and so too also James Chin and his people can never become prime minister. A Malay will always be a prime minister, not just a Malay, not a Malay from Sabah, not a Malay from Sarawak. It's a Malay from the peninsula. So when a person becomes a prime minister, he is not a prime minister for the Malay. He is a prime minister for Malaysian. He is my prime minister. So he has to look after me. He has to take care me. Of course, me, not Jayum Jawan, me as in Dayak, the Dayak community. Only then that prime minister, who is a Malay, is no longer a Malay prime minister, but a prime minister for Malaysian. I think that is what the Chinese, that's what the Indian, that's what the Dayak, that's what the Kadazan Dusun wants. A prime minister for all. Because in Malaysia, it is we have a funny system. We have a minister saying that, oh, this minister to represent the Indian community. So what? He is a minister for the Indian only, but I thought he is the minister for the federal government, and federal government represent the whole of Malaysia. So the Indian prime ministers go to Indian area only, go to the estate. Well, the people in Long Lama, the people in the deep interior of Sarawak is also your people, because you are the minister for Malaysia, not the minister for Indian. Or vice versa, the other Malay minister, and even a Sabah minister. You represent Sabah, yeah, because you are from Sabah, but you are a minister also for the Kelantanis, for the Terengganu, for the orang asli in the deep jungle of Kelantan and Pahang also. So, as a minister, just because you are a Dayak, so you keep going back to Sarawak at every opportunity. You forgot that orang asli is your people also. The Kelantanis in the deep jungle of Kelantan is also your people also. So this set of mentality needs to be changed. And I hope the present Prime Minister is the person who will drive that change. Why? Because he introduced keluarga Malaysia. So keluarga Malaysia cannot be just keluarga orang Melayu or keluarga orang Malaya. Dia kata, he is the one who said keluarga Malaysia. So kalau keluarga Malaysia, so dia tu kira bapa Malaysia lah, bapa keluarga Malaysia. Then dia bapa saya lah, bapa orang Iban, bapa orang Bedayuh, bapa orang Ulu, bapa orang asli. And I think much is expected lah, of Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri, who introduced that keluarga Malaysia. I think the people of Malaysia is waiting. How is his government going to operationalize keluarga Malaysia? I don't think people want. I mean, they have much expectation. Satu Malaysia before, bangsa Malaysia, not going anywhere. So hopefully, this keluarga Malaysia do something a little bit, and I think if he can show that he is the leader of keluarga Malaysia, he is the prime minister of the Iban, he is the prime minister of Bedayuh, and the Malay and the Chinese and the Indian. I think he should be given the chance to be the prime minister of Malaysia. I think that one enough, Dr. Dato, just to throw a hot statement to the audience. Let them throw back hot question also to the panelists. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Jayum. Yeah, I believe that both of the panels has provided some kind of ideas what is in the store, okay, for the general election. But I can see that there are some pessimistic opinion from both of the panel about the pattern. They believe that there are some traditional or some old patterns still emerge for the general election, for the next general election. So, but however, we have many changes happens within this the last few years. But it seems that there are many other things which also still retain in the context of political party, the political revival, the ethnic identity, and the majority-minority relationship between the not only among the political party, but also into the mindset of the people of the Malaysian voters. Okay, so before I open for some questions from the audience, I just would like to ask to both of the panel. All right. Do you think that it seems that what you said, for me, when you said the similar, I mean, they are nothing new for the some of the political landscape. So what do you think about the wish list of the young generation? Because nowadays you're talking about the youth, the only 18. So then what we need to expect from the people, for the young generation? So is that the young generation will not turn out for the election, for the next general election, because of what happened in the state election, for example in Johor, for example, the low turnout of the youth. So what do you think, that is it because of the similar products being offered in the store, or because of the aspect of the maturity level? So any of the
Thank you for the question. That's still on. Is it on? Oh, it's not already. Okay. Okay. The point I was trying to make was that before Undi 18 was approved, many people said that the 18, 19, 20-year-old will fundamentally change the voting pattern. People thought that the young people will be pro-opposition, vote for parties that stand for reforms. But the reality is that in the Malaysian system, the voting pattern among the 18, 19, 20-year-olds also mirror the general voting population. So the point I was trying to make was that don't make the assumption that just because these are young people, they want something that is slightly different. My own research shows that they have exactly the same sort of interest as voters who are older than them. The only difference that I can see is that the younger people want to see more younger people take leadership positions. In other words, if you look at our cabinet members, most of them are, how should I say it, above 50. So they are looking for younger people to be given leadership positions. But in terms of interest, it's roughly the same. Everybody is looking for better economy, better jobs, better living standards. And of course, people in the Klang Valley are looking for a bigger starting salary. Because the constant complaint we hear about Klang Valley is the cost of living. This is hitting the young people extremely hard. So I think for the young people, my point is that you should not assume that the old parties like UMNO, PAS, DAP, you should not assume that these people can't get the younger people to vote for them. They can. It's a question of whether you can put their interests on board and whether you can reach out to them, and which the political parties have already done. The other point I was trying to make is that there has been a lot of excitement over Muda. But if you look at the voting pattern of Muda, Muda did not win the majority of the new voters. They did win some votes among the young people, but they did not get a majority. So in other words, Muda appeals to just a segment of the voting population, but they are not going to, get the majority of the young voters. They still have to work with existing parties. So if Muda, my contention is that Muda cannot be a stand-alone party. If they do a stand-alone party, they will not win anything. Whether they like it or not, they have to join one of the bigger coalitions.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think this Undi 18, I think has been overstated their importance. People tend to, maybe there's too many political analyst group, political think tank around Klang Valley have nothing better to do but to over-project the importance of under 18. Now, under 18, as Professor James was saying earlier, is only a small portion of the total voter in any constituency. They may be a group of about a few million new voters, but they are not a block in a concentrated area. They are spread across 222 parliamentary seats and across as many as 500 plus state assembly. So they are just a small portion. They may be about 15 to 18% of the total voter. So if you think that 18% is going to determine who is going to win, I think that is a false analysis. What about the women? The women are about 40% in any constituency as a voter. You don't see more women candidates are being put up in order to attract this woman supporter also. Yeah, so I think their importance is over projected, over emphasis. But of course, certain political parties I'm aware in Sarawak are also trying to appeal by setting what they call a brand for these young voters within their political party. But that is fine. I mean, there's no problem with that. But to say that the outcome of election in any constituency and state assemblies or parliament is going to be influenced to a great extent by this under 18, I think it is overstating the importance and the role of these new emerging voters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, both panels, for responding to my questions. Now I open to the floor if there is any questions or opinion about what been explained by both of the panels.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. My name is Zaharun. I'm a teaching fellow here. I have one question. Could you please explain the culture among the Malays who heavily support corrupt leaders? They knew that these leaders are corrupt and are facing court trials. And why do you think that this is happening? And do you think race and religion cards are enough to explain, that culture? Thank you.
Do you get the questions? I think, can you repeat again?
I'm asking about the culture among the Malays who tend to support corrupt leaders. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Nobody wants to talk about Malay political culture. Okay, I will be the bad boy and talk about Malay political culture. I think the question is being asked is because there's a white held perception in this country that Najib, despite being found guilty, and Zahid ongoing trial, Najib being found guilty, Zahid and Rosma, everyone is somebody is okay, so I think there's a lot of excitement about these questions because people are thinking that people like Najib, Zahid are all making a comeback despite the fact there's ongoing trials with corruption. In the case of Najib, actually been found guilty. I think the best answer is actually given by Mahathir, which is Melayu Muda Lupa. But I think a much bigger issue is that I have to differ with my good friend there. I think in this election, the Malays are going to vote strongly for one side. If you look at the voting pattern of Malacca and Johor, what is very clear is that the Malay community thinks that we cannot have this political instability in the Malay community. In other words, we cannot split our votes too widely. So my contention is that in GE15, right, one side will win big. Either the UMNO side will win big or the other side will win big. Malay voters. The analogy I use is basically the analogy of a tiger. There's a very famous story in Chinese culture that a mountain can only afford to have one dominant tiger. So in Malay political culture in Malaysia, the Malays sees too much instability. They don't like it. So they will vote in one dominant side to get back the political stability. That is what I think will happen in the Malay polity. Many people think that the dominant party after GE15 in terms of the Malay votes will be UMNO. And that's the reason why UMNO feels that it's very confident. And this is therefore linked to the issue I spoke earlier, that if UMNO wins big, then it is quite likely that Najib and Zahid can make a political comeback despite being found guilty, despite the ongoing corruption trial. The other thing I need to say is that this is related to what happened in the Philippines, is that I think one of the problems we have in Malaysia in terms of political culture here is that this is something that came out from 1980s, which is not only among the Malay community, among throughout the Malaysian political culture, is that we actually expect our leaders to make full use of the positions for private benefit. Now, this may sound absolutely crazy to a lot of people outside Malaysia, but in this region, right, if you look at the region, this is consistent with the region. And I can prove it to you very easily. People will actually laugh at a YB if he drives a MyV. If you are a YB who holds a senior position in government or even a state exco or something, or ketua bahagian, right, people expect you to drive an expensive cars. If you remember, right, a couple of years ago, right, there was a big controversy because people found that Mat Sabu, leader of Amanah, was driving a cheap car or a small car. People expect him to drive a big car. And after he became a Menteri, he ended up with a big car. So I think this is something that not unique to Malaysia, but it is something about the political culture of Malaysia that we expect our leaders or those elected into powerful positions to be financially well-resourced. But it is quite obvious that in many cases, the way they do this is not probably not the right way. We have seen through court trials that the former deputy prime minister of this country was receiving what 250,000 every month delivered in cash. For those people who study Malaysian politics, it will not be shocking, but for a lot of people, that is actually shocking. In fact, I can tell you guys that 250,000 a month for one businessman is actually not much. There are many cases where the money involved is a lot bigger. So what is the solution? I don't know, because political culture is something that grows over time. And once you have this sort of political culture, it's very, very difficult to turn back. Sorry, I'm not good news.
It's okay, Prof. I think you're not a bad boy. I think that's a common.
Oh, I thought it's enough one person to respond to that.
You have a different opinion about that, I guess.
No, I think I do not dispute any of those things, even the question I will ask. But let me put it this way. Our political system and structure need a comprehensive overhaul. SPR, the Election Commission, the Parliament, members of Parliament, and whatnot, or even in government missionaries. They need an overhaul. They need a review in order to strengthen the democratic process. I am appalled at the fact that a member of Parliament who won a seat is only a part-time member of Parliament. He comes to Kuala Lumpur when there is a meeting. Other than that, he is running his law firm. He may be running his medical practices. He may be appointed as an ambassador. And at the same time, he may also be holding a position as a member of the State Assembly. And also at the same time running his own business, for example. So one man perform 4 or 5 functions and collecting all this, So who is he serving? I thought member of Parliament are appointed to serve the people. So that is a very noble thing, noble job given to you, a mandate by the people. But all he does is when there is a death, then he come over just to hand over his donation of 100 ringgit that perhaps buys nothing. So because he hands 100 ringgit to help the bereaved family, then he take pictures, post it in the his Facebook, or it will appear in the newspaper. So I think this is, to me, this is injustice. One individual holding 4 or 5, but if you're not holding public position, that's okay. I mean, you want to run 100 business firm, I think that's I won't be commenting on that. But if you are holding many public position as one individual, I think that there's something wrong with what we are doing in Malaysia, because many once they become members of parliament, if they are not the minister or deputy minister, they will be given the chairmanship of local authorities or chairmanship of government-linked companies, or given a position that has no position actually. A person is, for example, a certain state government would appoint a person as a science advisor with ministerial status. Now, what the hell is that? That's it.
Okay, thank you. I think the image of the politician is very important for us, and that's why I think there is a question from the chat also about talking about the issue of leadership. All right, from Dr. Kuldeep Singh from Zoom. Dear Prof, in your view, how is Malaysian political leadership doing when we benchmark with other countries like Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, etc., since leadership plays a crucial role in the economic and social development of the country?
We get what we deserve. We get this kind of leadership because we are the one who voted for them. And not enough that we voted them once, we voted them twice, 3 times, 4 times, until they don't want, to become candidate. So this is Malaysian, So we voted the wrong people, and then we start blaming other people. So we have to wake up. We have to exercise our vote correctly, instead of voting blindly because we belong to a political party or we support political party A. So whomever political party A put up as a candidate, we vote for him blindly without using our brain to evaluate who among the contesting candidate is the best to represent us in our constituency. So I think this has been happening for the last, 50, 60 years, since 1963, since the formation of Malaysia. I can say for certain that I'm not impressed with the quality of representation from Sarawak. I don't want to meddle into other states. From my own state, I'm not very impressed with Dayak community with the IBAN representation. I don't want to touch Malay, I don't want to touch Chinese, I don't want to touch other. Just IBAN because I'm in IBAN. So if IBAN want to hantam me, hantam lah. Yeah, I'm not impressed. Lack of communication skill, lack of networking. Some don't even have education, proper education. Some have issues, moral issue, because to me, a leader must be an example. People keep on saying that a leader must be an example, role model. To me, if you cannot manage your own family properly, you cannot be a leader. How can you be a leader to thousands of other families if you cannot manage your own family properly? To me, I think it's shameful to do that and to offer yourself as a candidate in the election and want to be elected when your own families are in this array. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Audience, no? Okay. There's another question from the chat. Fazlina Muhammad asked question, based on the current perspective, how can UMNO play a role in balancing power in maintaining hegemony in a multiracial Malaysian society and young people? Yes.
The answer is simple. No, UMNO doesn't believe in that. Look, among the Malay parties, one of the things I like about the Malay party is that they're very clear what they stand for. UMNO stands for Malay nationalism and Malay dominance in the coalition government, which is called Barisan Nasional. They played the game very well for the last 60 years, but they made a crucial mistake in 2018. Okay, PAS also stands very clear for Malay nationalism and Islamic nationalism. So most of the Malay parties are branding very, very clear to people, even to the non-Malays. None of the core Malay parties believe in what we normally call a concept of multiracialism. They believe that this is a Malay state and the Malays must dominate the system politically.
But how about the other political party, such as that being voted for Pakatan Harapan? Do you think that they also portray that kind of image, try to creating a kind of hegemony position, not hegemony, maintaining, the multiracialism? What do you think about it?
You have to understand the concept of multiracialism in Malaysia is not widely understood, or it is not the same as what we mean by multiracialism in other countries. In the Malaysian context, right, it's all about how much political space do we give the non-Malays. So among all the political parties, they all have their own different approach, as in, like UMNO's approach is that we will allow any parties to come into Barisan Nasional, but there can only be one Malay party. So therefore, we dominate the coalition. In the Pakatan Harapan side, their approach is very different. Every party or anybody can join Pakatan Harapan. We can discuss it, but it will not be Malay dominant, but Malay led. So again, at the end of the day, the core political system in Malaysia is based on the Malay polity. This is something you can't run away. So Jayum just now was talking about Malay majorities is decided the outcome of elections. But even beyond elections, if you look at all the key institutions in this country, civil service, armed forces, the royalty, all the key what we call institutions of state, this is all led by the Malays. So it is not an issue of whether this is not a Malay state. It's an issue of whether you want to create a democratic system in Malaysia where all the interests are represented, or you want to create a Malay state where the Malays' interests are not only overly represented, but the Malays decide what sort of representation are allowed given to the other races. And that's exactly what Jayum was talking about when you talk about the people in Sabah and Sarawak feel that they've been marginalized. So the marginalized process is due to the fact that the Malay political leadership on the peninsula side decide how much space do we give to the people or to the non-Malays we trust of Sabah and Sarawak in terms of political representation, in terms of political strength. So the reason why we have MA63 coming out here is because from 2008 onwards, the Malay political class in Peninsular Malaysia pecah, right? They broke up, and therefore for the very first time since independence, since 57 or 63, the Malay establishment on the peninsula side needed the MPs on Sabah and Sarawak to maintain power. So after that, they gave more political space to Sabah and Sarawak. So that's the reason why we are talking about Sabah and Sarawak today. I can guarantee you, before 2008, if Jayum and myself were holding a seminar in UPM, nobody will talk about Sabah and Sarawak. It's as if Sabah and Sarawak don't exist. But of course, Jayum will keep reminding you he's Iban. But other than that, politically, Sabah and Sarawak will not exist. Agree or not, Jayum?
The Dayak sentiment, I think it's quite strong for you, isn't it, Prof?
Well, UMNO or Bersatu is just as good as each other, and perhaps PKL. I have no problem with them. I mean, like I said just now, this is a Malay-dominated political system, and we're going to have a Malay as a prime minister today and tomorrow. Yeah. What I appeal to to my Malay friend is that open up a little bit lah, yeah, because this is not negeri Melayu. Dulu negeri-negeri Melayu, Malay state. And then it become the Federation of Malaya. Never mind, you quarrel, the Malay quarrel with the Chinese and the Indian. But now you are in Malaysia. There are Kadazan Dusun, there are Dayak, there are Melanau. Yeah. So we are more diverse. So you have to open up. We are not asking for what belongs to you. We want you to give us what you should give us in the first place, according to the terms and agreement in Malaysia Agreement 1963. Don't tell us about the Constitution of the Federation of Malaya. That document is no longer valid. The only document that is valid now is the Malaysian Agreement and the Federal Constitution 1963 and beyond. Not before, because before is just nostalgia. Nostalgia. But of course, although I say that many of the terms of the things that are in the Constitution of the Federation of Malaya, such as things that covers the Malay rulers, the Malay language, Islam, and all that, they are still incorporated in the Federal Constitution of Malaysia 1963. They are also included in the Malaysian Agreement, but your citation must be correct. You cannot cite archaic document. You have to cite 1963, and I think this is forgotten. I like to remind the leaders, Malay leaders of the peninsula, and my Malay friends. Sabah and Sarawak is the one who save your back, your behind. I mean, I could be saying that jokingly, but why is Malaysia formed? Malaysia is formed because the Malay were about to lose their political power in 1960s. Yeah. So, because when Malaya were about to join together with Singapore to form a new federation, Malay political power would have slide. That is the reason why Sabah, Sarawak, and also Brunei came to the rescue. So after you were rescued, you forgot the good deeds of the people of Sabah and Sarawak. And mind you, the people of Sabah and Sarawak, majority of them are not Malay. So you have to be mindful of that also. Sabah, there's only 5% Malay at the time. Well, if you talk about Muslim, then 45% Muslim. But the Muslim are the Kadazan, the Muruj, they are not Malay also. And in Sarawak, there's only 21% against 45% Dayak. All that is orchestrated by the leadership from the federal government. And we are patient. We allow that to happen. But you are not accommodating. So how long are you going to allow that? How long would you think the Dayak can accept that quote unquote the injustice that you are doing? So I think be fair. We are asking for fairness. We are not asking for what belongs to the Malay, what belongs to the Chinese. No, what belongs to the Chinese, you keep it. We don't want it. What belongs to the Indian, you keep it. But give us what you promised us in 1963. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I might a little bit different. I mean, have a different opinion with you, but it's okay. It's not my platform to say anything. But is there any question from the floor here? Yeah. Please introduce yourself and institution, please.
Hello. Okay, salam sejahtera Profesor Dr. James Ching. Saya ada soalan untuk ditujukan kepada doktor. Okay, saya Misbahuddin bin Adnan, pelajar FEM tahun 3, berasal daripada Pekan Pahang. Okay, soalan saya, sebelum PRU ke-14 Parlimen saya mungkin mendapat sedikit keistimewaan lah, disebabkan oleh Perdana Menteri yang ke-6 daripada Pekan. Jadinya selepas kejatuhan Barisan Nasional dan diambil alih oleh Pakatan Harapan, pembangunan di kawasan saya Pekan, kebanyakannya saya lihat dihentikan ataupun banyak dikaji semula lah. Soalan saya kepada Profesor Doktor, adakah kemungkinan untuk Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak kembali menjadi Perdana Menteri Malaysia yang seterusnya? Terima kasih.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you a very short answer. The answer is yes. There is a chance that Najib can come back as the prime minister, but there are many routes to take. It depends. Everything will be dependent on the results of GE15. If UMNO wins very big in GE15, then yes, he will have a very clear jalan to become Perdana Menteri again. If UMNO loses GE15, then no chance. If UMNO loses GE15, he, Zahid, and a few other people are going to Sungai Buloh University.
All right, thank you. Prof, you want to comment on that? Even though, yeah, the question for James.
What was the question?
Yeah, about the potential of Najib to be the next prime minister. What do you think?
No, like I say, the prime minister, the Malay from the Peninsula determine. If you want Najib be it. You know, if you want Zahid Hamidi, so be it. It is not Sarawak. It is not the Iban who's going to determine the prime minister. It is you. So the quality of the leadership, the quality of the leaders from the Malay will be determined by the Malay from the Peninsula. We have no big role in that. And that is your prerogative with 125 seats in Parliament. Do I think he can come back? The Malay will have to answer that question because you are the one who's going to vote, not me. I don't vote for any of the people in Malaya. I only vote for the people in a very small constituency. So many things that he may be able to come back based on 2 state elections that has been conducted. And the what they call the swing back, based in Malacca that has been won and based in Johor. So that's why we have been hearing that the UMNO people are very anxious to have the general election carried out as soon as possible because they think that these Malay voters are gullible. But gullible or not, you will have to answer to yourself and to the higher up whether you have made the right choice and that our nation is going to be guided into the future with a good leader. A good leader is a leader that has integrity. A good leader is a good family man. A good leader is a leader with high moral value to be emulated by us, by me. You know, I want to emulate a Malay leader, but then I keep on looking which Malay leader to emulate. Tak ada. But you have plenty more. Why are you going back to the same base that you yourself are questioning? I don't question your Malay leader. I have no authority. You know, it is not within me to question the Malay leader. It is you yourself to question it. I just have to accept whomever you choose. And so choose wisely. And choose wisely for yourself, for your children, and for people like me who have no power, you know, to help in that situation, because we want our country to be respected overseas. We don't want our leaders to be laughed at because they cannot do this, they cannot do that, or because they have done something that is questionable that people don't. In other countries, you know, in moral activities that are not acceptable, they jump off the cliff. South Korea the other day. That's how shameful it is. But we keep on talking about our society, the Malay society, the Iban society. There is highly people yang beradat dan beradab. And we see that many, not just Malay lah, Iban pun ada juga, Sarawak pun ramai juga yang tidak beradab, tidak beradat. But unfortunately, maybe we have learned from the Malay from Peninsula. We vote for them also. So we are also at fault. So we have to learn together to look for new leader, no moral issue, high integrity, people-centric, you know. It is so easy to become ministers and then to enrich my family member, my cousins and my nephews and all that kind of thing. So these are not the kind of leader that we want. We want leaders to come and be modest, work for us. Respect us. We don't have to respect them. We are the one who put them over there. We are the one who give them salary. Why should we respect them? They should be respecting us. And I think we have a wrong sense of respect. Our leaders should be respecting us because we have given them the opportunity, big role to play in our nation. And all this transformation of mind can only happen when we ourselves take the initiative. We ourselves tell our children, to what Malaysia menghindarkan perbuatan-perbuatan jahat seperti itu. So it is our responsibility and responsibility of all these lecturers in this faculty, because every semester I was told thousands of students walk through your door to take moral studies, to take Kenegara Malaysia, about politics, government, morality, leadership, to take ethnic relation. So it is the role of this faculty is more important than so many faculties in this university, because the people who walk through your door one day is going to be ministers, menteri besar, and prime ministers. So the responsibility is not small. You may think that they just walk once in their 4 years here, but that one contact is going to leave a very deep impact, because that is going to how your contribution to molding future leaders of Malaysia. Thank you.
Yeah.
My colleague, the answer too depressing. So I better give you something more positive. Okay. Okay, my wish list. This is something actually quite is doable in the Malaysian context. If you guys want to see profound change in Malaysia in the short term, then you need to elect a female prime minister. Now, this is true. I'm not joking. Okay. If you talk about benchmarking, if you were to look at the performance of the female ministers in government, comparatively speaking, I'm not saying they're perfect. They are a lot better than the record of the male ministers. If the Malay political culture can change in the short term and allow a female to become the prime minister to Malaysia, I'm not saying things will change overnight, but I'm saying that at least you'll be back on the right track. You'll be back on the right track. I think the fear for Malaysia, and there's a lot of fear in the community, especially among the middle class, what we call the Bangsa crowd or whoever it is, that if Najib makes a comeback, we will be caught in a spiral and there's no way to get out. Because the symbol of Najib coming back in the power is that Malaysia, as I mentioned in my presentation, we're going back in time, macam the movie Back to the Future. We're going back to pre-2018. So if you look at all the reports about the Philippines, this is what is happening. People think that Bongbong Marcos is going to bring the Philippines back to the era, what what literature calls strongman politics, bring the Philippines back to the era of strongman politics, which is the sort of policies pursued by his father. So if Najib comes back, I can guarantee you UMNO this time will fundamentally change the system in such a way that it will be much harder for them to lose. They have learned the lessons of 2018. They know how to change the institutions so that you make it much harder than to lose. So if there is something that is doable, then the Malay community themselves really have to decide that maybe it's time to give, Malaysians would say give chance, to give an opportunity to a female prime minister.
Totally agree with that. Okay? Because yeah, as a female, I guess that's very important for us to make a new change for Malaysia. All right. So I think we have another question from the chat. From Chinadu, being an outsider, being an outsider, my observation of the Malaysian politics is more of one ethnic group being favored above the others, despite the illusion of Satu Malaysia. While intellectual discourse of this nature is important for the sensitization and sharing of ideas, how exactly can intellectuals have to change this mindset, and how to get the masses to truly understand the need to vote in that will ensure that everyone ethnicity.
Okay, so I think the student is asking about the Bumitra policy in this country. Look, this is a very complex issue. It is something that requires a separate seminar. What I will say is this: the issue of Bumitra policy in this country, right? No matter how you look at it, it doesn't matter whether you are against it, for it, or whatever. It is not sustainable in the long run. That is the bottom line. So the bottom line is that you need to change the policy or reform the policy, because this policy is simply not sustainable in the long run due to basic economics. It is not something that can be changed easily, because I think many Malays in this country believe that it is their birthright. It is also something that cannot be changed easily because the way the institutions are run in this country. But having said that, I believe that it is possible to reform it in such a way that the Bumitra in this country who need help to the government can still get it. The policy can run, but not in its current form. Because if you were to carry on with this policy in the current form, sooner or later, there will be economic contradictions. So it is not sustainable in the long run.
Yeah, right. No? Okay. All right. Right. So the last question, there are two questions actually. The first one to date from Chu. To date, which political coalition has better winning formula for general election? 15, or none of them has it? Second question, do you see the delay in Malaysia anti-hopping law has placed the voters not just at the crossroad, but probably in the jungle without a compass? First one is about the, and
so I'll answer the second question first. There's been a lot of talk, especially in parliamentary circles, NGOs, about the importance of the anti-hopping law. I take a very different position. The reason why I take a very different position is for practical purpose. While I believe that there should be a law, anti-hopping law, the current suggestions before Parliament on recall election is in some ways too complicated. But putting that aside, I believe that if there is a slight chance that this Parliament will pass a law, assuming that there's a slight chance, because you know that there's no momentum for this, but if there is a slight chance that we should pass a law in Malaysia, the most important one above everything else, including anti-hopping law, is to limit the term of the Prime Ministers to 2 terms. Okay? This is a truism. I've been studying Malaysian politics for more than 2 decades. I can tell you, everything in Malaysia, every big thing in Malaysia, if you were to trace back, you can trace it back to PMO, Prime Minister's office. Okay? If you can limit the office of the Prime Minister to a maximum of 10 years, then people who occupy that position or people around him will be much more careful about the choices they make. Okay, if you look at all the big items, things that have gone wrong in this country, it's because the people who get involved in all these things believe that they will be in power forever. Therefore, whatever they do, they will never be accountable. Okay, if you can limit the top guy to 10 years in power, I believe that a lot of the things that you see that happened to Malaysia previously will not happen in the future. After you pass the law, of course, you can pass the anti-hopping law. But I do not know why the NGO class in this country are pushing very much for this anti-hopping law. They think it's much more important. But in my opinion, the more important thing is to limit the power. Because in our system, even though we borrowed or adopted or inherited the system from the UK, the Westminster system. The actual mechanics of the system in Malaysia is very different. Here, the Prime Minister is too powerful.
Well, I addressed something on ethnic relation, I suppose. That's part of the question was something about ethnic relation. Or the person who asked that question should ask BOM of Malaysia. Dia boleh teropong. So that is not an academic question. But anyway, my position on this matter is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which political party, UMNO ke Bersatu ke PKR. It doesn't matter to me as an Iban. You Malay people determine whom you want to be your leader, to be your prime minister. Then I support saja. Ya, itu saja. So kalau prime minister tu yang dipilih oleh orang Melayu di Semenanjung itu rosaklah Malaysia, tak apa. Saya tumpang rosak juga. Jadi because saya tidak ada kuasa. Tidak ada kuasa dalam hal ini karena sistem kita sedemikian dibentuk. Saya berharap sahaja bahawa kerajaan persekutuan yang ditubuhkan pelbagai etnik ada di situ itu sebagai balancing balancing saja. Kalau menteri-menteri itu berani bercakap dengan Perdana Menteri, kadang-kadang semua menteri itu semua menteri angguk. Ya. Mewakili Sabah Sarawak kononnya, tapi kenak Sabah Sarawak tak pernah diketengahkan sampai 7 menteri dalam suatu tempoh. Tak juga Sarawak maju kerana 6-7 daripada Sarawak ada, 6-7 daripada Sabah. Sekarang 1-2 saja banyak bising. Jadi these are the kind of politician. Tak kira lah orang daripada Semenanjung ke yang memilih orang daripada Sabah ke, orang daripada Sarawak. So jadi benda itu berputar di situ. Jadi mungkin kualiti ahli-ahli parlimen kita di Malaysia itu yang dipilih itu tadi, dia berkait juga dengan sistem. Saya kata sistem. Dan SPL, Suruhanjaya Pilihan Raya Malaysia itu memainkan peranan. Kononnya ada orang-orang baru yang dilantik ke SPL dalam 4-5 tahun dahulu. Tidak juga SPL itu bertambah baik di dalam sistem yang mereka lancarkan untuk mengadakan pilihan raya dan pilihan raya kecil. So jadi apabila selama ini semua harus Semenanjung saja fungsi, cubalah bagi orang Sarawak tengok macam mana akan rombak habis terus. Jadi lagi kalau orang Iban dia tukar buang semua ahli-ahli yang tak performing itu tadi. Ada sistem yang baru yang mampu memilih ahli-ahli parlimen yang berkualiti untuk orang Melayu, untuk orang Cina, untuk orang India, Sabah dan Sarawak. Tapi masalah jadi bila orang Semenanjung mahu benda macam itu? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other question from the floor? Before I responded to one of the question in the chat. All right, so then I go for the question in the chat. There's a question from Li Shirong. Will the Philippine presidential election, the rematch between Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. and the current Vice President Leni Robredo, have an impact on Malaysian current general election?
Yes. The lessons of the Filipino election is that social media will be the main source of information for young voters. So that's the reason why in my presentation I said that you can expect, right now Malaysian, most of the TikTok I've seen are fun TikTok, entertainment TikToks. But coming election, most of the Instagram, all those things will be taken over by the political cyber troopers. So they found that it worked very well in the Philippines, and there is no reason to think that it will not work well in Malaysia because the voting profile is quite similar.
Right. Huh? No. Okay, any question from the floor? No.
Just a question, Prof. We are voters. We have to choose our leaders. based on your professional observation, Prof Jayum, Prof James, who is the best candidate for our next Prime Minister? Is it Mahathir Mohamad, Najib Razak, Zaid Amidi, Muhyiddin Yassin, Anwar Ibrahim, or as mentioned by Prof Jayum, give another chance to Ismail Sabri, or as Prof James said, give a chance to female Prime Minister. Can you name it? This is my very short question. Thank you.
Okay, to be very blunt, the people I thought would be good for Malaysia over the next 10 years, they are not in the leadership position yet. There's one name that you did not mention. He has a very good chance of being Perdana Menteri, Hishamuddin. Another one that you did mention is, of course, Tokmak, which is being seriously discussed in the upper levels of UMNO. But the person or the two persons I'm thinking of, they're not in the leadership positions yet. So among the current group of leaders, my short answer is that if any of them get into power, all the list that you mentioned, plus the two names that I mentioned, right, no reforms in Malaysia is possible.
Well, we already have so many prime minister from Malaya. Bagilah Sabah Sarawak. Cuba, kenapa tak cuba? Tak bagus turun kan, you know. Jayum Jawan pun boleh juga. Mungkin lebih baik daripada yang sudah ada. So.
All right. Any other question from the floor?
Saya ada
Name
soalan.
please and
Oh sorry, my name is Najiha. I'm student from tahun 3. Saya nak tanya, ada tak peluang untuk anak muda ni untuk naik jadi pemimpin? Macam sekarang kalau kita tengok, kita ada Syed Saddiq, untuk DAP punya kerusi kita ada Yang Sefura dan Dayana Roslan. So untuk BN kita ada Syahril, tak silap saya. So ada voters sekarang ni yang agak berumur ni, saya nak tanya, dan pada pandangan Prof juga, ada peluang tak untuk kami ni naik jadi adun untuk next election?
Okay. It depends on which party you're talking about. Kalau you want to stand under Muda, no problem. But if you want to stand under UMNO, a bit difficult, because UMNO has a very rigid system, the way you climb the UMNO ladder. And also you need a bit of financial resources to climb the party. So if you are very talented, not much financial resources, doesn't come from a prominent family, you have to look at parties like Muda, DAP, party like Warisan, the newer parties, even PKR, where you have a better chance. If you come from a family that's got some cable, some connections, some financial resources, then it's quite easy to climb parties like UMNO. I hope that answers the question. But the good news is in this coming GE, there will be a lot more candidates between 24 to 33, 34. The last time I count at the internal list, there was already about 11 candidates. So the political parties are looking at younger people. It's a question of whether they are given winnable seats. So more young people will be in this election. You can say I said that, and then you count the numbers, I will be right.
All right, thank you. Let's say that you are.
So, on a more serious note about the Prime Minister, my view is consistent. It doesn't matter which Malay. Now we have Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri. Well, what's wrong with him? I have not heard or I have not read anything about immoral, lack of integrity, and so forth associated with the current Prime Minister. But of course, he is a Vice President. He's not a party leader of UMNO, neither he is also a leader of the coalition. So next round, that might be a little bit difficult for him to be sustained in that position, because it is by convention in Malaysia that you have to be the leader of a party or a leader of a coalition that is ruling the federal government. My concern about who is the Prime Minister is not so much is it Ismail Sabri, is it Hishamuddin, the next one, or is it just about anybody, any Peninsular Malay? My concern is that if he is going to be a Prime Minister for Malaysia, then he has my vote, he has my support, strong support, and I would speak on his behalf that that this is the guy that is to be supported as Prime Minister, not just Prime Minister of the Malay. So he has to open out. He has to share the, in political science, you call it the political spoils, spread it, not just give it to the Malay. Bapa keluarga Malaysia, so jadi semua anak-anak dalam keluarga itu anak dia. Adalah orang ada itu sebut anak kedasan anak saya, anak Melayu, anak saya, something like that lah. But if he is able, but setengah orang itu sebut saja, dia tak ada kuasa untuk melaksanakan. The Prime Minister sekarang ada kuasa. So jadi orang akan tengok, menunggu. Jadi apa bapa keluarga Malaysia buat untuk anak-anak dia, bukan sayang kasih kepada satu, yang lain tu dia tidak, dia abaikan, dia kurang sayang dan sebagainya. So jadi dia kena sayang semua secara berpatutan tadi. So jadi kalau itu, dan itulah orang yang memang wajar menjadi pemimpin Malaysia, negara yang berbilang etnik. So jadi setakat ini Perdana Menteri sekarang ni tak ada lagi lah, tak terbaca lagi yang dia ni ada kontroversi itu, kontroversi ini. So jadi tak tahulah sama ada orang Melayu mau memberi dia peluang. Tapi kalau peluang tu tadi itu cabaran kepada orang Melayu lah, bagaimana nak memastikan dia tu tadi boleh terus, kerana sebagaimana saya sebutkan tadi, sistem parti menentukan siapa layak, siapa akan diangkat menjadi Perdana Menteri tadi. Sekian.
Yes, Prof. Maybe it is true some ways, but I think the young generation, they are looking for the young leaders. They expect that someone like Syed Saddiq, I mean at least the age. So I think when I went to fieldwork, there's a question I think they keep asking me. They keep mentioning to me that why they need to still retain the old people in the leaders. Yeah, as a leader.
Syed Saddiq belum layak lagi, suruh dia pergi belajar dulu. Ya. Jadi menjadi pemimpin tu bukan orang yang boleh dilantik sahaja, begitu saja. Ramai orang boleh dilantik, ramai orang layak dilantik, dan ramai orang boleh menang menjadi ahli parlimen. Seperti juga ramai orang, misalnya kalau di universiti, ramai orang boleh dilantik menjadi naib chancellor. Tapi nak jadi pemimpin itu hal yang lain. Menjadi pemimpin dengan menjadi naib chancellor ataupun menjadi menteri itu perkara yang berbeza. Saya boleh dilantik jadi Perdana Menteri ke menteri, tapi apakah saya boleh memimpin kementerian itu, membawa keagungan kepada negara yang saya pimpin ataupun kepada kementerian yang saya kemudikan tadi. Jadi itu dua berbeza. Bagi saya tidak ada masalah. Orang tua tu wisdom. Kita nakkan wisdom, bukan pendidikan. Pendidikan orang muda boleh dapat PhD, 2-3 PhD boleh dapat, tak ada masalah. Tapi adakah kerana dia ada PhD, kerana dia ada pendidikan itu, dia mempunyai kebijaksanaan, wisdom. Jadi wisdom itu tidak boleh kita ambil, kita boleh pergi Harvard, maka keluar daripada Harvard itulah orang yang ada wisdom. No. You have the certificate from Harvard, Cambridge, Yale, but I don't think you are a wise man. A wise man, a wise person, it needs experience. It needs time to develop. And itu yang kita perlukan di dalam pemimpin, bukan oh kita nak orang perempuan lah kerana tak ada cukup perempuan, kita nak orang muda lah kerana orang muda tu ramai. Tak payah. Muda-muda tu belajar dulu. Akan datang masa kamu diberi peluang untuk memimpin negara.
I believe that you're against the undi 18. Okay. If there any question from the floor before I end the session? Any questions? Right. Okay. I believe that our topic is about what Malaysia at crossroads. I believe there are many intersections. Even though from the panel presentation, we can see that they are highlighted about there are similar patterns, similar issues. But I believe it's also been, we are also seeing all this kind of issue in a new perspective. Because after the many political change within the last 4 years or 3 years, especially during the pandemic COVID-19, there are new perspectives to look at all these kind of issues, even though all the issues are similar, what happened in the last 60 years of our Independence Day. Right. So what is in the store for general election 15? Right. So this is also another question that very important for us to answer from this kind of the discourse. Well, so we can see that similar political party, but new changes, new people coming in for the new, especially from some perspective, but they also existing. I mean, the similar people retain in the political system, political party. So we might offer the same people, we might offer the same political motivation or whatever we say that political similar what we say that like Malays. I mean, UMNO with the Malay nationalism. I think the Barisan Nasional with a similar focusing on the political coalition or the Pakatan Harapan. And you also have a new like Muda Pejuang, whatever it is. But the thing is, we have to be practical. People need to vote. I think general election is coming very soon. But even though we're saying that, but is it true that general election is coming very soon? So I believe that I will ask the both panelists 1 minute to conclude based on our topic. Is it true that we are really at a crossroad? So are we really facing the general election very, very soon? Because just because of the end of the pact between the Pakatan Harapan and the government will be end soon, but it doesn't really 100% guarantee that we are going to have general election, isn't it?
A very short answer. The answer is yes. Elections will be held this year because the political calculation is such that most of the people who can make elections happen do not want to wait. The only person who wants to wait until next year or the full term is Ismail Sabri. Everybody else wants the election to be held this year. What you're talking about the MOU, I can reveal that they are currently talking to sign a second MOU, but that is not going to stop the elections from being held this year. So my prediction is that election will definitely be held this year, and that among the Malay voters, they will choose one dominant party. Because in the Malay community, it is very clear to me, as somebody who studied Malay community for a very long time, that a lot of Malays do not like this constant political instability since 2018, and they want one dominant party to bring back political stability.
Well, vote wisely, because the leaders that we put over there reflect us. So we have nobody to blame once we have cast our vote. But of course, it is the system. Our system is such that we are not voting for a prime minister, but the candidate that we vote at our local level will, at the end of the day, move into what they call selecting party leaders. So although my vote does not vote for prime minister, is only voting for members of parliament in my constituency, but who I vote for in my constituency will affect at the end of the day, the selection of the prime minister, because who he belongs to, which party he belongs to, and which party that he belongs to support which party at the federal level. I think they are all later on connected. So indirectly, but not directly, indirectly, we will be contributing to that. So hopefully we don't just talk, we just don't complain behind our back, we just, at coffee shop, but we have to come out, because at the end of the day, they are all the same anyway. We are electing leaders, but let's elect the best. We want the Malay Peninsula. There are good Malay leader in Malaysia. So why must we settle for less? Settle for second best. So we should go for the best in Peninsula, national level, Sarawak, Sabah, and and various other states. Thank you.
Very soon. So we have two different opinion about the general election. All right. Okay. So I think that's all. Thank you very much for both panels. I think we have a good discussion. All right, today. So on behalf of the organizer, I think I would like to thank to everyone participate in this kind of discourse. We have, I think, about 57 participants from Zoom, and also with the audience in this kind of hall. So thank you very much.